You open a drink and barely think about it. A can, a bottle, a glass on a table, a tiny controlled dose of poison with branding. Now strip everything away, no bar, no bottle, no refrigerator. No label telling you what this is, no doctor. For most of human history, putting strange liquids into your body was not a lifestyle choice. It was a risk. Water could kill you. Rotten food could kill you. The wrong plant could kill you while your group watched. So how did your ancestors discover alcohol? Not how did they invent a party? How did they look at bubbling fruit, sour grain, strange foam and think, yes, this deserves a second chance? The first answer sounds almost too simple. Accident. Fruit falls from a tree. Honey gets diluted by rainwater. Crushed berries sit in a skin bag. Wild yeast, floating invisibly through the air, lands on sugar and begins eating. The yeast releases alcohol. The smell changes. The liquid fizzes. The taste becomes sharp. That explanation deserves real weight. Ancient humans did not need a laboratory to find alcohol. They needed time, hunger, and a world full of sugar trying to rot. A hungry hunter-gatherer could bite into overripe fruit and feel something unusual. Warmth, relaxation, a slight wobble in the thinking machine. Maybe nausea later. Not exactly a peer-reviewed tasting menu. Other animals eat fermented fruit too, so maybe alcohol was not discovered in one brilliant human moment. Maybe it was part of the landscape. A smell in the forest, a signal from fallen fruit. A biological accident waiting for any mouth brave enough to investigate. But here is the part most people miss. Finding alcohol is easy, trusting it is harder, and controlling it is a completely different kind of intelligence. Robert Dudley, professor of integrative biology at the University of California, Berkeley, argued in 2014 that primates may be drawn to ethanol because, in nature, it can signal ripe, energy-rich fruit. That does not mean ancient humans were wandering around drunk on purpose. It means your body may have inherited an ancient attraction to the smell of sugar turning strange. Think about that. Your brain may not have met alcohol in a tavern. It may have met it under a tree where sweet fruit was bruised and crawling with invisible life. But ancient humans were not just sniffing weird fruit and hoping for the best. They were pattern machines. Survival depended on noticing small differences. Which berries made children sick? Which root softened in fire? Which honeypot made people relaxed instead of dead? They watched bodies. They watched reactions. They remembered. The archaeological record rarely gives us the first sip. Liquids disappear, wooden bowls rot, skin bags decay, the laugh, the cough, the bad decision. Gone, what survives are traces, residues, stains, chemical ghosts stuck inside pottery, stone and ancient vessels. And those ghosts are strange. At Rakfet Cave in Israel, archaeologists found evidence that Natufian hunter-gatherers were making a beer-like drink long before farming became normal life. Li Liu, professor of Chinese archaeology at Stanford University, published in 2018 that microscopic starch damage in stone mortars from the cave showed brewing activity around 13,000 years ago, likely connected to ritual feasting for the dead. That detail changes the story. This was not just someone licking spoiled porridge because ancient quality control was having a rough week. This was deliberate. They were soaking grains, heating them, crushing them, letting them ferment, creating a drink that took planning, memory, and shared technique. And they were doing it near burials, where the living had to face the brutal fact that everyone around the fire would eventually become bones. Alcohol was not just a buzz. It may have been grief technology, a way to gather people, loosen fear, mark death, turn raw grain into something emotionally powerful, maybe even spiritually dangerous, not primitive, human. But there was a problem. Fermentation is unstable. Too little time and you get sweet mush. Too much time and you get rot. Wrong container, wrong temperature, wrong ingredient, and the drink becomes useless or disgusting. Ancient humans had no thermometers, no written recipe, no sanitized equipment, just hands, smell, memory, and trial by stomach. Your ancestors lived in a world where one experimental snack could become a funeral. So imagine the intelligence required to keep doing this safely. They had to learn that honey water could become mead, fruit juice could become wine, grain mash could become beer. They learned which containers worked, which seasons helped, which batches were dangerous, which elders knew the old way. This is where alcohol becomes less like a discovery and more like a relationship. Humans did not find alcohol once. They kept meeting it, in fruit, in honey, in grains, in storage, in accident after accident, until accident became technique. Patrick McGovern, scientific director of the Biomolecular Archaeology Project at the University of Pennsylvania Museum, reported in 2004 that pottery from Jiahu in China preserved chemical traces of a fermented drink made from rice, honey, and fruit around 7000 to 600 BCE. That matters because it was not one ingredient going bad, it was a recipe: rice, honey, fruit. 3 sugars brought into the same vessel. That is not caveman stupidity, that is culinary chemistry without the word chemistry. Ancient humans did not discover alcohol because they were bored. Boredom is a luxury when predators exist and winter is not taking suggestions. They discovered it because fermentation sat at the crossroads of survival. It preserved calories, it transformed plants, it made gatherings stronger, it made rituals heavier, it made pain, fear, hunger, grief, and celebration feel different for a little while. That last part matters. Your ancestors carried nervous systems built for danger. Darkness meant predators. Injury meant infection. Cold meant death could enter quietly. A child crying at night was not the background noise. It was a signal in a world full of teeth. Then comes a liquid that changes the room. Voices loosen, bodies warm, stories grow longer. Fear steps back from the firelight. Not gone, never gone, just quieter. That is powerful, also dangerous. Alcohol can bind a group, but it can also damage one. It can turn ritual into dependence, warmth into violence, medicine into poison. Ancient humans did not need modern addiction science to notice that the same drink that made one night easier could make the next morning brutal. The strange part is that alcohol was both useful and untrustworthy. Like fire cooks food, scares predators, and burns the careless. Alcohol preserves energy, builds ritual, and punishes the reckless. Ancient humans lived with forces that helped them and threatened them at the same time. That was normal. Modern life tries to separate comfort from danger. Your ancestors rarely got that option, and science still cannot fully answer the first moment. We do not know who first tasted it. We do not know whether they laughed, panicked, vomited, sang, or quietly decided the ancestors had sent them a confusing gift. The oldest evidence gives us traces, not faces, but the pattern is clear enough. Alcohol was not a sudden invention. It was a discovery of invisible life: yeast eating sugar, fruit turning, grain changing, honey waking up in rainwater. And ancient humans, far from being primitive, were observant enough to turn that weirdness into culture. So the next time you open a drink and barely think about it, remember what is hiding inside that ordinary glass: a forest floor, a burial cave, a clay jar, a fire in the dark. A group of ancient humans watching one brave person sip something that smelled alive, dangerous, and impossible to ignore. And somewhere inside your modern body, your ancestors are still asking the older question. Not what is in this drink, but what part of us learned to trust the poison when the night was cold.